Spooky season is upon us, and on this episode of the DePIN Hub Newsletter Weekly Recap, we're going to help you separate the DePIN tricks from the DePIN treats. You don't want to be investing in The Walking Dead. You want to be like a werewolf howling at the moon. And on this episode, we're going to show you how the Decoding DePIN series comes back with how to spot a good DePIN project.
Welcome back to the second installment in the Decoding DePIN series. So last week, we took on the macro issue of how to actually define what a DePIN is. Now we're going a little bit deeper, helping give you some alpha so you can figure out how to cite a good DePIN. Separating the wheat from the chaff, the trick from the Halloween treat. Big shout out also to our researcher and writer, Megan Lim, whose lines I frequently steal when I'm doing these recaps. That's your intellectual property, Megan Lim. Thank you. Now, our question here is, how do you identify DePIN projects that are built to last? If you're in the space for a while, you understand the pain. There's now hundreds upon hundreds of projects launching, each promising to revolutionize infrastructure. It's getting harder to separate signal from noise. If only there was a website designed to help you. DePIN Hub. DePIN Hub. DePIN Hub. The question is, how do you know if that promising white paper will translate into real-world adoption? When does innovative technology actually equal sustainable value? Well, after months of research on just this issue, we're about to launch a new initiative at DePIN Hub, so stay tuned in the next 2 weeks because we're going to help you evaluate DePIN projects in a more seamless fashion. Consider today's analysis a sneak peek into our methodology and a glimpse of what's coming to help you navigate this wild landscape known as DePIN.
If I were you, I would think about climbing on board.
Today, we're going to jump into 3 critical pillars behind that framework. Now, I'm not, I might look like a degen, bro, but I'm not really into the technical analysis, so we're not going to go into that. We're going to be talking about fundamental analysis, looking at these projects essentially as companies, as in the world of DePIN. That's what they really are. So, number 1 in our fundamental analysis techniques, by the way, do your own research. None of this is financial advice. Don't let this guy be responsible for your personal financial portfolio, okay? But you should still listen because I'm going to help you not waste time, stuff like that with your life, all right? So, number 1, core project attributes. So looking at the core kind of basic fundamentals of a project. And those are mainly 3 things: the technology, the team behind that technology, and the roadmap to get to where it's trying to go in that white paper. So in DePIN, the strength of fundamentals is even more critical than in other areas of crypto, such as GameFi, meme coins, etc., because you're now operating both in the digital as well as the physical world, essentially at the same time. When a DePIN fails, real stuff breaks down. Your internet might go out. A drone might fly into the side of your house. Your map might take you right into a dead-end road. Nobody wants that. So, when analyzing a DePIN project, here are 3 things that you can ask yourself. Number 1, is the technology actually solving a real problem, or is it just blockchain for blockchain's sake? There's a lot of infrastructure in the world of Web3, but at some point, we need to figure out what actual problems we're trying to solve with the info. Number 2, does the team have the expertise to deliver on that ambitious roadmap, or what you see in the white paper? And are there technical milestones? So this is number 3, very related to 2. Are there milestones to get there that are realistic and well thought out, or does the whole thing just feel like wishful thinking?
This scary black bar is what you spend on things that no one ever needs.
Now, a great case study in a project that seems to be doing all 3 of these things quite well is Mawari. So Mawari is a Solana-based DePIN project focused on scaling spatial computing. So specifically the world of extended reality, AR, VR. In space filled with a lot of big, grandiose promises, Mawari stands out because they're solving a concrete problem, making AR, VR experiences more accessible through groundbreaking compression technology. Think the MP3 for XR. Now, what really catches our attention isn't just their 95% reduction in cloud rendering costs. It's how this can translate into real-world applications. Okay, and we actually deep dive into Mawari in episode 44 of the DePIN Hub podcast. So you can check out more there. So first, what sets them apart is the team. They have combined decades of experience in computer graphics and cloud infrastructure. So these aren't just blockchain enthusiasts who discovered AR. These are AR experts who recognize blockchain's potential to revolutionize parts of their industry. So if we sum things up, Mawari is a good example of an answer to these questions. Does the technology solve a real measurable problem? Is the team's expertise aligned with project's goals? And is the roadmap showing logical progression and an understanding of the greater market dynamics at play? So again, a sleek website, fancy buzzwords are all cool, but they don't build infrastructure. So speaking of expensive in finance, we're going to talk about market and financial viability next. So that's our second aspect to look into when analyzing project. We're talking about project market fit. You might have heard of product market fit. We're talking about project market fit. This is more than a product. We're talking about a community. We're talking about token economics. We're talking about a service or a product. All together, they need to fit into a real world market demand. So essentially, you could break that down to the revenue model, whether the revenue model can sustain both infrastructure growth and also generating long-term token holder value. Many projects fail not because their technology doesn't work, but because they failed to implement a sustainable business model connected to that technology. Now, this is where one of the OGs in the space, their story becomes particularly interesting, and now, this is where one specific project that I bet you've heard about story becomes particularly interesting. Our friends at Helium. So in case you missed it, for the past 5 years, Helium Network is a decentralized wireless network allowing people and devices to connect with the internet. So they're doing this on IoT and the 5G mobile side. Okay, so their success isn't just in the numbers, although adding 20,000 subscribers to their mobile network in December 2023 alone is kind of impressive. It's also really in their sophisticated approach to solving that pesky chicken and egg problem that plagues a lot of deep projects, because you're essentially building a supply and demand marketplace. They've done so with a multiple token model where they have HNT as sort of a parent token that you can trade on a lot of exchanges, but then in their sub DAOs, specifically for solutions like IoT or mobile, they have their own token that can be traded and generate its own value that rolls back up into HNT. How do they tie all of this together and connect it back into the real world revenue model of their business? They do that via data credits. So data credits are pegged to fiat, and this ensures predictable costs for their network users. And it ensures as well that the broader tokenomics align to network growth and value creation. So this suave and savvy model has enabled Helium to build the world's largest decentralized wireless network with over 1 million active hotspots today. And it's also allowed them to maintain a healthy overall growth, even while they transition their core focus from IoT to mobile. Because in case you're not a telecom person, you might want to know that it's actually considerably easier to monetize 5G connectivity than it's historically been for IoT, which is the Internet of Things. So to recap, does the project demonstrate an understanding of the target market size and dynamics? And are they actually taking action on that, or does it just appear to be research? Where's the evidence of actual demand via paying customers and not just pilot programs? And finally, is there an economic model in place that creates sustainable value for all stakeholders, or does it require constant token appreciation? So remember, having 1 million Discord members might be cool, but you know what's even cooler? Having paying customers. Speaking of which, tokenomics and community strength are a third area that we will touch on today when assessing a good and healthy DePIN project. Strong tokenomics are a tricky thing. One of the many things you need to take into account is ensuring that early contributors aren't overly rewarded at the expense of the latecomers. An example of this actually would be with Helium, where when people saw the rewards going up, they wanted to order hotspots for themselves. But guess what? Hardware is hard. It can take a while to ship. By the time some people got their hardware, rewards were already going down due to market saturation. People got upset. At the same time, you also have to ensure that early contributors who take the lion's share of risk, because they're the ones investing in the network when there's no guarantee the network will work, are also incentivized a little bit more. One way to help align long-term meaningful participation in the network is through things like staking, where you actually have to lock up some of those network tokens over time, and you normally are rewarded for doing so Now, community, when you think about community, you think about Telegram, you think about Twitter followers. But guess what? In this day and age, a lot of people are buying followers, using bots, etc.
Stop it. Get some help.
Vanity metrics like these are actually quite nice for the centralized exchanges who might require them before you list your token. But we believe what's more important is having a healthy ecosystem of engaged participants who understand and believe in the project's actual vision. Now, if you need a better visual, speaking of vision, let's go back to a company that's helping give us all a better vision of the road and the streets around us, which is Hivemapper, building the world's freshest map data through a decentralized community of dash cams. All right, Hivemapper has already successfully, in only a couple of years' time, mapped more than 130 million road kilometers. How did they do that? Well, we would argue that a big portion of their success lies in understanding that in DePIN, the community, meaning you guys, isn't just your user base, it is your infrastructure. So you can paste that on the wall, ladies and gentlemen. In DePIN, your community is your infrastructure. Hivemapper's token distribution model links rewards to value creation. So actual map usage, the data that's being used on the demand side, will further incentivize and reward the people that contributed to create that map data with their dash cams. Another way that they incentivize meaningful mapping data is through what they call bursts. Burst is essentially a coverage bounty where you can basically put tokens in a certain area to motivate people to create whatever the meaningful service, in this case, mapping networks, is for that area. And by doing so, you get enhanced rewards. This is often called boosted hexes, and you will see other projects like GeoNet doing the same thing. A hex, by the way, is basically just a geographic way of overlaying some sort of system on a map of the world. Is very commonly used in DePIN, namely H3 resolution hexes. This actually comes from Uber, who designed this entire mapping system of hexes. Now, to sum it up, are token incentives truly aligned across all stakeholders? Or do they unfairly reward certain groups at the expense of others? Think about those early investors. Are they taking up all the rewards on the token allocation pool? Does the hardware strategy make economic sense for contributors? Meaning, is there a realistic ROI or payback period on your hardware investment? And is the community actively contributing to network growth, or is everybody just waiting for the next price pump? That, ladies and gentlemen, essentially wraps it up. And if you're not feeling good, well, the Chiefs are 7-0, so you should be fairly happy. But if that's not enough for you, guess what? In 1 to 2 weeks, we'll be dropping some big news. So you better check in next week, because what we've outlined today is only just the beginning. We're about to unveil something that will change how you navigate the DePIN landscape and help you bring even more clarity to this complex world. This marks 2 recaps in our Decoding DePIN series complete. Stay tuned for the final installment next week, ladies and gentlemen. But before I leave you, if you haven't checked it out yet, you really should. Last week's podcast with everyone's favorite CTO and co-founder, master of DePIN, the DePIN DJ, Daniel Andrade, was interviewing Santori Aramo, the COO and co-founder of Uki Labs. What is Uki Labs? They are a decentralized spatial computing and machine perception network for the next 100 billion people, devices, and AI. Super interesting podcast. They talked about everything from companies like Meta looking at your pupil dilation to detect your emotional state and sell you products and all kinds of crazy stuff. One of my favorite episodes. You guys should check it out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to go out, do some trick-or-treating. It's time for you to make some money with DePIN. That's what it's time for. And until next week, I must sign off. Send you all my love, DePIN revolutionaries. Stay deep centralized.